You don't need the.
I'm doing legend. He a 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 legend. Welcome to the league. 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 Welcome to the league. To the league. To the league. To the league. To the league.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel, and today is a very interesting day in the world of League of Legends because of Worlds. Bet365 posted their Worlds 2022 odds. So right now, you can go on a sportsbook in New Jersey at Bet365, and you can bet on who you think will win the World Championship. So before we get into the teams that are included on this list and the odds that are being offered and the implied win rate that you need to beat in order to win money on those teams, take a couple of minutes and write down on a piece of paper the teams that you think have the best chance to win Worlds and what percentage of the time you think that they will win Worlds. Because for people who aren't familiar with sports betting, you'll be shocked by some of these numbers. One number to keep in mind as just like a touchstone is that there will most likely be about 24 teams at Worlds. So just use the number 24. If a random team that went to Worlds won the World Championship and it was selected randomly, it would be a 4.17% chance to win. In that, you have one team from this is from last year. It'd be one team from Turkey, one team from Oceania, one team from Latin America, one team from Japan, one team from CIS, one team from Brazil, two from the PCS, which is Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and Southeast Asia, three from North America, three from Europe, four from Korea, and four from China. So there were supposed to be two teams from Vietnam. They weren't able to go because of COVID. So that's 4, 8, 11, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 teams. I think that they brought in a third seed to Europe. And then some other teams like had to go to the plains and stuff like that. So, in reality, I think that a lot of people would agree that a lot of these teams that make it to the World Championship don't actually have a chance to win Worlds. It's possible, but I don't think that it's reasonable to give them a 4% chance to win. The team from Turkey, Oceania, Latin America, Japan, CIS, Brazil, PCS, they just most likely will not win. There have been some very strong teams from the PCS, and maybe that's unfair to say it about the PCS. I think that we've had winners from those regions in the past, so I take that back specifically. So if we are only including the quote-unquote 5 major regions, although most people talk about it as 4, it would be 4 from China, 8 including the teams from Korea, 11 including the teams from Europe, 14 including the teams from North America, and then 16 if you included the teams from the PCS. So if you divide 100 by 16, you get 6.25. So now it would be a 6.25% chance for a random team to win Worlds. Before I show you the list, I'm just going to say that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 teams from Korea, which is how many they'll have. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams from the LPL, which is 3 too many. So they're ascribing percentage points to those teams that it's just too much, because like 3 of those teams won't even make it to Worlds, and they didn't include JDG, which I think has a realistic chance of making Worlds. So those are the kinds of things that you can look out for, and overall, because of the perceived strength of China, you're probably going to find good value somewhere else. So like I said, before I get into the rest of the video, just keep that stuff in mind. And before I get into the rest of the video, I want to mention my partner, Thrive Fantasy. So if you want to bet on props, specifically over-unders for different things that happen in a League of Legends match, over-under kills plus deaths, over-under assists, you can enter a bunch of different kinds of contests by using the promo code PIKEL. You will also get two $20 contest entries. When you deposit $10 and play in the contest, you'll get four $20 contest entries when you deposit $100 and play in a contest. And you'll also get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So with all that being said, let's get into the rest of the video. Let's talk about some Worlds numbers. So this is the list that I put out previously, talking about teams to bet on for Worlds. This chart in front of us is kind of what the what was being implied by the sports books because of how teams would match up one another. So in a theoretical world, in a possible world, when T1 plays against Gen G, we would say it's a 1, 2, 3 tier difference. So in a 3-tier difference, T1 is supposed to win a lot of the time, 80% of the time, which is obviously too high. They're basically begging for you to bet money on Gen G. So without taking a look at the percentages or revealing the percentages yet, we have T1 and Weibo Gaming in the S+ tier. They're the best teams from the two major regions. Then we have EDG, V5, LNG, RNG. So 4 more teams from the LPL, which have closer. They have a better chance to beat, according to the sportsbook, they have a better chance of beating Weibo Gaming than Gen G, Dom1, or DRX have of beating T1. So much so that they're not even, like, those other teams aren't even in the same tier. Then you have a gap just because of the way that it plays out and the numbers that I use. Then we have Gen G, Top Esports, BLG, Team Liquid, Rogue, and Fnatic. And that the reason that happens is for a combination of reasons. It's not necessarily saying that the sportsbook thinks that Rogue, Team Liquid, or Fnatic is better than Dom1. It's just that because of the teams that they're going to play, the relative strength gets kind of skewed, and this was just for the chart purposes. And then we have Dom1, JDG, Misfits, Vitality, G2, Cloud9, 100 Thieves, Evil Geniuses, and DRX. So this is just a starting point off of other numbers I've seen from the sportsbook, not to win the World Championship specifically, but in matches against teams from their own region, which bleeds into the odds to win like that region's championship. Right now, the only other lines that are available are for the LPL Spring Championship. But when I see the LCS numbers, LCK numbers, and the LEC numbers, I'll make an update for that video. Shouldn't do that. So let's get into the updated. These are the tier. This is the tier list based on their odds, and I'll explain it. So first up, we have teams that have over a 15% chance to win Worlds, according to the sportsbook, is T1, V5, and RNG. And that's in order, I think. Then we have 5 teams that have between 9 and 14% chance to win the World Championship. We have Weibo Gaming, EDG, LNG, Top Esports, and Gen G. Then you take a huge step down to Dom1 Gaming and BLG. And this is where you get into the range where these are like, if a random team came to Worlds and won, that's the percentage that they should be ascribed. So that seems like a good value spot potentially. I'm not convinced that BLG will make Worlds. I am convinced that Dom1 will win Worlds, or will make Worlds. So already we're seeing a big difference where if you know that a team is going to make the World Championship from Korea and their odds are like off, then you should bet on them probably. Because it does kind of take into consideration the possibility that Dom1 could have an amazing summer split and then show up to Worlds and have much better odds. But for that portion of it, we'll kind of look at what their odds are now and what their odds could be in the future, and then see how much of a difference it is for the money that you're betting on them. Then we have 2 teams from the LEC. We have Fanatic and Vitality, followed up by DRX and Rogue. And then the rest of the teams, and basically any team that is not listed would probably be listed around these odds or higher. We have Misfits, C9, Team Liquid, and G2. All are listed at plus 5,000, which is 2%, a 2% chance of winning the World Championship. The 3 teams that I have on here are 3 teams that I'm asking them to release lines for: JDG, Evil Geniuses, and 100 Thieves. I have a sneaking suspicion that if they offered a line for JDG, it would be better than plus 5,000. And that's because of the region that they're coming from. So I have the numbers here. And these are the exact numbers that we have. So first up, we have T1. They're at plus 400. So whenever I say these numbers about like plus 400, plus 500, it means that if you bet $100, you would get your $100 back plus the number. So for 400 plus 400, you'd be betting $100. If you win that bet and T1 wins Worlds, you'd get $500 because you're getting your $100 back and $400 more. So that's a 20% chance. The win rate that you need to hit for that bet to be a good bet is it needs to happen 20% of the time or more. So if you ran a projection system that said, like, that did 10,000 simulations of the World Championship, and the simulation said, actually, based on the different factors that we take into consideration, T1 will win 30% of the time. Then you have a 10% differential over the sportsbook, where the odds that they should have offered were 10%. Not 10. It was a difference of 10%, meaning that you're getting a 10% edge on the sportsbook. You're not going to find that in general, because a team is probably not 20%. A team is probably not going to win it 20% of the time. And I guess that depends on the year. And right now, T1 looks very dominant. And that's kind of interesting because V5 doesn't look anywhere near as dominant as T1 does, but they're at 18%. So they're at plus 450. V5 is the number one team from the LPL, according to the sportsbook here. RNG is the next team, and they're also from the LPL. They're at plus 550, which is 15% chance. Weibo Gaming, plus 600. We have LNG and EDG also at plus 600. They all have a 14% chance to win the World Championship. And one of the teams that I just mentioned, one of those 5 teams, will not make it to Worlds. Then you have Top Esports at plus 650. Their numbers have been all over the place. They were at plus like 1,300 to win. They were at plus 1,600, I think, to win the spring split in China, and they're at plus 650 at Worlds. Just think about how crazy that is. How much that number must have changed within the past week or two, because Top Esports has been playing pretty well. Then we have Gen G at plus 1,000. And this is where I would probably make a stand. I think that Gen G is better than plus 1,000. My only problem is that I don't think that the odds are going to be much better than what's offered later on in the year. And what you have to do is take into consideration the time value of money. So you're basically laying out $100 or however much you want to bet on a prop like this for months down the road. We're talking, 6 or 7 months that your money's going to be tied up. So take that into consideration before any bets that you make. Waiting means that you might lose a little bit of value, but then other value might open up, so you might still have a bet that you're happy with closer to Worlds. And there's always something out there that is going to look like a good bet closer, right around Worlds. So we have Gen G at 9%, Dom1 Gaming plus 1,600, 6%. And that is a crazy number. Like, that's one that you almost feel obligated to bet as somebody who pays attention to this, because you're telling me that when they get to Worlds, they're basically a random team. They're not a random team. When they make it to Worlds, they will be thought of as one of the 7 best teams, almost guaranteed. Because even if they limp into Worlds as like the 8th best team, people are going to talk about how they've made it to the finals 2 out of the last 3 years, I think. They won a world championship, then they lost to EDG. Like, they're a very good team. They did have a roster swap. The roster swap that they made should not impact them as much as it has so far, which makes me believe that as time goes on, the talent level will kind of take over of these players, and they'll be more similar. They'll be probably an improved version of what we've seen. I think that it may or may not be Deocdom at the World Championship as their AD carry, but they will have an AD carry that is better than Ghost. It's guaranteed, basically. Moving on, we have BLG. So BLG at plus 2,000. If BLG makes it to Worlds, these odds will be very far off, because that means that during the summer and like the spring playoffs, summer regular season, and the summer championship or the regional finals, it means that BLG made a run. If BLG makes a run going into Worlds, their odds will skyrocket. They will go to like, plus 800 max, probably, because they're going to say, oh, BLG's hot, they have Uzi, or they'll say, oh, BLG's hot. They have Doggo and he outplayed Uzi, and now like Uzi doesn't even have a chance to play on the team. Like there's no scenario where BLG makes Worlds and has a four-figure odds for their future bet to win the championship. So this is another one where it is a long-term bet. You're basically saying not only will they make Worlds, but they're going to win the whole thing. It doesn't feel good. Like the perceived value is definitely there, but you're making multiple kind of difficult to see bets. You're probably better off not doing that. But hey, it's your money. Do what you want to do. Then we have Fanatic and Vitality. They're both at 2,500. So the sportsbook is basically saying whoever the best team from Europe is has roughly a 4% chance to win, which does seem kind of crazy because you would expect at least one or two teams from the LEC to make the knockout stage, which is 8 teams, so equals 100 divided by 8, so 12.5%. So you're basically saying, I think that Fnatic or Vitality is about 8% underowned because I do see them making it to the knockout stage of Worlds, and if they make the knockout stage of Worlds and it was random, then it'd be 12.5%. Like I could see that. That could be an okay argument, I think. Like there's enough talent on a team like Vitality where I think it's definitely possible. I'm not convinced by Fnatic. I know that they look very good against teams in Europe. I just don't believe it on a world stage. And I'm willing to be wrong. Are you? Are you going to bet on this? Are you willing to be wrong? I doubt it. DRX against Rogue. Or not DRX against Rogue. DRX and Rogue are both at plus 3,300, which has an implied break-even win rate of 3%. So in order for this bet to be profitable, they need to win 3% or more. Or for it to break even, it needs to be 3% or more. And this is interesting because both of these teams should make Worlds. Or at least the Worlds play-ins. So they're going to be in the mix. They will be at the World Championship, and their odds are lower than the random team to win Worlds. So I'm not sure how much value you're getting there, but if you lock in this bet now as opposed to 3 months from now, 4 months from now, maybe you're happy with the odds that you have. In general, like if you have just money on a sports book and you're not going to do anything else with it, then sure, maybe try one or two of these futures, like super long-term futures. But betting on it now is kind of a little degen status. And then, like I said before, the rest of the teams, Misfits, G2, Team Liquid, C9, they're all at plus 5,000, which is 2% chance to win. JDG, 100 Thieves, and EDG, they're not even listed, which is kind of surprising to me, but I guess not totally surprising. But that's basically it. I think it's super interesting because, like, the sportsbook does this because people like to kind of think about who the best teams in the world are, and a couple months from now, they'll probably still have those odds out, and we'll take a look back at this list and be like, oh my god, I can't believe that BLG was plus 2,000. They just went on a 10-game win streak in the LPL, and Uzi looks like he's playing out of his mind. Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but those are the possible scenarios that we can kind of run into. I guess before we leave, I'll say my favorite bet from each region. So if I was making a bet on a team from Korea, it would definitely be Gen G. If I was making a bet for a team from the LEC, it would definitely be Vitality. If I was making a bet from the LCS, I would still make it Evil Geniuses, but that's with the assumption that their odds would be longer than the plus 5,000. And like, I know Team Liquid probably looks like the most reasonable one to pick right now, but I'm not doing it because I think that their current iteration of their team does not have a good chance to win Worlds because we all know what their limitations are, and we've seen them compete against teams from the East before. And yes, they've played well and admirably, and they should be proud of how they've competed on the international stage. They have a very decorated roster. Hans Sama has done very well at Worlds. CoreJJ has won Worlds. Bwipo has been to the finals. Bjergsen was on TSM, so they were not very good at Worlds. And then Santorin, I don't think, has been very good at Worlds either. But you have three players who have legitimate Worlds experience. So maybe if they swap out Santorin and Bjergsen, I'd be more convinced. But I just don't like the current team the current team composition. You can use some of those arguments against the players from Evil Geniuses, but I'm pretty sure Impact has won a world championship when he was with T1. Inspired, just a very good player overall. I prefer him to Santorin. Jojo Pyun, we don't know. Danny, we don't know. Vulcan, we don't really know. Like we know that he is one of the best supports in the LCS, but is that good enough? And then if I had to pick a team from the LPL based on these odds, I would pick. Ugh, man. If it was to win and not necessarily the value for the odds, if it was betting with my heart, I'd pick Weibo Gaming. If it was betting with my mind, I would pick LNG. I think LNG is being disrespected right now. They are not playing at the highest, they're not playing up to their talent level right now. But that will change over time, I believe. But that's all I've got for you today. Like I said before, if you like betting on props, if you want to support the channel, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and if we get 50 people signing up using the promo code PIKEL on Thrive Fantasy, I will open up the Discord to the public. Everybody will be able to join and kind of talk about betting. If it's insane and the wild, wild west and we need to shut it down, I'll do that in the future. But I'm willing to give it a shot because I appreciate the amount of support I get in terms of views. And we're just trying to make it to the next level in the League of Legends YouTube game. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.